I don't know if I'm ready for this or not. This is going to be a crazy episode, so let's get into it. Hey y'all, welcome back to Not For Nothing. I'm your host, Cass B, and this is episode 7 of Not For Nothing. How did we already get on episode 7? That is absolutely crazy. I had it on my heart tonight to record a podcast episode because I missed a Sunday, get out, and I'm so sorry about that. I'm supposed to be posting every Sunday, but I've been so bad about it recently, and I'm not sure why. I am sure why. Procrastination at its finest. I need to be better about that. That's so me. But I just thought I'd come on here because I shared something last night on TikTok, on a TikTok video, and I shared a little bit about my journey through a kind of public breakup, and a lot of people felt the same way. So I wanted to share a little bit more of that here in detail for anybody who might, feel some type of, connection to it in any way. And surprisingly, there are a lot of other girls who were like, I'm also going through this. I broke up with my boyfriend of 6 years. Like I'm just now going through a breakup. It's fresh, it's new. And they were like, I totally get what you were saying and it totally makes sense. And this helped me so much. And to think that my story that I was so scared to put out actually helped somebody else is insane to me. So I just wanted to share a little bit more in depth about that because a few people had a little bit more questions that I didn't exactly answer to the full extent on TikTok. And when you go through a breakup, you get to this place where you're kind of, looking out for the other person. You respect the other person. But at the end of the day, you also had a really big part to play in that relationship, right? Like you carried half of it. You were 50-50. You were mutual partners. You were equal partners. You both had a say in it. And at the end of the day, I have a lot to learn and process of myself from that relationship and things that I don't want to carry into a new relationship, but also things that I can take away and share with you guys that I learned from that relationship. I learned from the breakup, and it's okay for me to share. I still respect him and I want nothing but the best for him, so we'll leave it there with that topic. So last night I shared a video, and on this video I was talking about my breakup, and if you don't know, I went through a pretty public breakup, but also pretty private. So we held it kind of from social media for about a month or so when we felt like the timing was right to share. I was getting a lot of DMs, he was getting questions, and it was just time to kind of put it out in the public that we had broken up. And I hated that part of it. That was the part that I was dreading the most because I felt like I was letting social media down, and that's so weird of me to think or to believe, because to be honest, I'm not letting anybody down. I was actually doing what the Lord was calling me to do, but also I was doing what was the best thing for me. But at the same time, I made our relationship so public by choosing 3.5 years ago to go public on social media about it. I remember our first ever TikTok that we made, and I remember looking at him, I'm like, this is going to change everything. Once I publicize this, all of our friends know, all of our family know, but then again, hundreds and thousands of people on the internet know. And we both made the conscious decision to move forward, to, publicize our relationship. And that was one of the best decisions that we made, or at least I believe that I made for myself and our relationship. And moving on from there, everything was public. Every post that went out on social media, every heartfelt caption, everything like that, all of that was real. And to all of a sudden turn from that years later and be like, we're moving on from each other, we've decided to break up, whatever, that was really hard. And for a while, I was really angry, and I felt like I didn't quite understand why God would lead me to a place of helping other people with their relationships and confiding in those people. And, we all were growing in our relationships. And all of a sudden I was the one that had to raise the white flag and be like, we're actually not continuing together and we're not dating any longer. And that was kind of embarrassing, to be honest, because we had friends that were dating long term. We had friends that had started dating around the same time we did, or we had friends that were getting engaged, and friends that were married, and friends that were getting married, and friends that were having babies. And for us to be like, oh yeah, we're stepping back, we're no longer together, that was a gut punch for me. I think I put off the breakup longer because I wanted to avoid it, and that's so bad, and you should not do that. But in my heart and in my mind, I was like, the sooner people know that we've broken up, the more questions people are going to have, the more I'm expected to be sad and to be all these things, when I was sad and I was upset, but at the same time, I had already grieved the relationship. It's kind of what I want to go into in this episode a little bit further. So I'll start with what I shared in the video last night on TikTok, and then we'll just go from there. Okay, so last night I get on TikTok and I film a little video and I share it, and it's talking about the Bible. that I have and how God put it on my heart whenever I first got the Bible, that this was going to be the Bible that would carry me through my breakup. And I was like, what on earth are you talking about? We're not broken up. We're together still. We're still dating. And I had started traveling a lot with my new job. And I was traveling probably once a month at this rate, or once every other month or so. And that was slowly taking a toll on our relationship. And I won't go into too much detail there, but it took a weird toll on our relationship. And anyways, I started traveling and I was going to Nashville, and I was so excited for this trip, y'all. And this is a little bit of a reality check for you guys. So y'all can post on social media and like, oh my gosh, I love him and he's the best boyfriend ever and all this stuff. And y'all be having problems behind the screen. And that was us. We're posting on social media like we were the best couple ever and that we, didn't have any issues and we were perfect and all this stuff. But if you knew us, if you truly knew us, those months leading up to the breakup were some of the hardest that we've ever endured, because we came to face a lot of the doubts and issues that we've been pushing down forever. Those came up to a rearing head and we had to deal with them. We had to process them. And instead of being like, oh, we'll deal with it later, we'll just get married and it'll fix all of our problems, we were like, no, I think we need to actually consider the idea of what if this doesn't work out. And it was a really sobering thought, especially for me, because I was like, okay, I'm going to get married by this age. I'm going to have kids by this age. I'm going to be a homeowner. I'm going to do all these things by this age. And then to think that all of that I have to start from the ground up on is scary. And for you to think that like your best friend at the time is not going to be the one that you're going to end up with is scary, right? Like the person I spent these past few years getting to know and that knows me better than anybody, all of a sudden, like, he's not going to be my person anymore. All of a sudden, he's not going to be the dad to my kids. And all of a sudden, we're not going to have a life together anymore. Like, that is literally so scary. And if you're out there and you're like, I can never imagine that, just know that, like, it seems unimaginable. It seems like you can never get over it, but you can. It is possible. Because I had the same thought, and I thought I would literally end up in a mental institution if I went through with a breakup. And lo and behold, I'm living on my own, thriving, and this does not look like a mental institution. So there you go. So I go to Nashville and I get on the flight, and before this, we had agreed to like limit our contact with each other. We were like, we're not going to text, we're not going to call. This is a business trip for me. So like, I don't need to be on my phone anyways, or as much. And I was like, I'm going to be really busy while I'm there. So like, let's just limit our conversations to like basically nothing. And he was like, okay, that's fine. Like, we'll go on no contact. And so we go on no contact. I get there, and as soon as I get there, I text him. He's texting me. Like, we broke no contact very fast. And I get in my hotel room, I unpack my stuff, and I'm like, okay, like, all of a sudden I had this weird feeling when I got in the hotel room. I felt like, I don't know, I felt this like weird like freedom. And I was like, okay, like, but I can like do whatever I want to while I'm here. And so I contemplated like going out to dinner or doing whatever. And I was like, no, I think I'm going to stay in. So I stayed in, and like I got my stuff together, and I turn on the TV. All of a sudden, I literally start bawling my eyes out. And I'm sitting on the bed and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I am bawling my eyes out. There are 2 beds in the hotel room. So there's a bed on the left, there's a bed on the right, and then there's like the bathroom there. And in the bathroom, there's like this sink with a mirror, and then you walk through, and then there's actually like the full bathroom. So there's kind of like a half bath right there. And I get up and I'm sobbing like uncontrollably. And I'm like, what is going on? And I go in the bathroom, I'm standing in the mirror and I'm looking at myself and I'm like crying. And I never sob. Like, I'm never like a big crier. Like, maybe if, like a sad movie comes on or whatever, like maybe like that. But like, I never really cry, and I haven't cried in a long time. And I'm like uncontrollably like sobbing. Like, nothing had happened. Like, neither of us said anything. Like, it wasn't like that. And so I got back on the bed and I texted him. I was like, can we call? And we got on FaceTime, and I'm like, there's something off with me. Like, I'm sobbing with him on the phone. He's like, why are you crying? And I was like, I have no idea. From that point on to the next 3 days that I spent in Nashville, I was sobbing uncontrollably to myself every night. Like, I even went as far as to tell my boss the next day. I was like, I'm sorry, my face looks puffy and I'm exhausted. I cried myself to sleep last night. And she was like, Cassidy, what? And I was like, no, it's fine. Like, I'm fine. I just think I'm processing something. I don't know. I still had no clue. I had taken this no contact thing to like the next level, and I think my body started to process that we were breaking up before we even broke up. And I know that sounds so crazy, but I didn't tell a soul. Like, nobody knew. And so around this time, I had re-downloaded Snapchat, and I was like, I'm going to get back on Snapchat, like get close to my friends again or whatever. And that had been an opposition for a while. Like, we had both deleted Snapchat when we were dating, because we felt like we didn't need it, right? Like, when you're in like a happy relationship or whatever, like, I just don't feel like Snapchat's necessary. And the months leading up, for some reason, I downloaded Snapchat and didn't have any conviction about it. It was fine. Like, nothing was happening on there. It's just like my close girlfriends or whatever. But like, I just felt this weird sense of freedom all of a sudden start to like kind of come up in me in the last like 2 months of our relationship. And so, like I said, I'm crying myself to sleep every night. It's probably the second night, and I text him, I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I need to actually cut off communication with you, because like I'm crying uncontrollably, and I have to be on my A game here, and like I can't do that if this is going on between us. So flash forward. So it's the last day of the trip, and I walk down to our booth, which I'm hosting, and they have a Bible and bookstore pop up on like the next row over from us. And I knew that I wanted to go and look at all the books, because I'm a Bible snob. I'm a book snob. I love buying books. I love buying Bibles. Do I use all of them? No, but I love having them and buying them. Like, I just love it. I think I have like 17 or 18 Bibles. I have so many, and I love buying them. And so I walk next door to go look at the books, and I remember calling him, and I was like, is there a book that you want here? Like, I'm showing him all the Christian books and stuff, and he picked out one. I was like, okay, I'll get it for you. And then I like turned around, I saw these Bibles, and they were like stacked up, and they were like all like down the row. And I wish I had it with me, but it's over on the couch, and I'm freezing, and I have a blanket on my lap, so I'm not gonna go get it right now. But I see all these Bibles in a row, and I have wanted this Bible forever. It has been on my Pinterest board. It has been literally everywhere, and the colors on it are beautiful. I'm looking at it right now. It's like blues and pinks and everything. And for the past few years, I've actually like sworn off pink, because if you know, my Instagram feed from years ago was nothing but hot pink. Like, it was atrocious. And then I kind of migrated into like coastal grandma, only blue, strictly only blue. And now I'm like slowly getting back into color again. Like, I'm learning. And so anyways, I go over to where this Bible is sitting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want this Bible so bad. And it was actually discounted because of the conference that I was at. And I was like, this is meant to be. Like, I'm just self-justifying why I need this Bible when I really don't need the Bible. And so I pick up the Bible, and I go and check out. I get his book, I get my Bible, and I go host the booth. We get back to our rooms, and I open the door to mine, set down my stuff. I take my Bible over in the box to the bed, and I sit down in the bed, and I start opening it because I'm so excited. And I open it up, and I'm flipping through the pages, and all of a sudden, when I tell you guys, I don't normally feel like this from the Holy Spirit or God. Like, maybe once or twice in my life have I ever audibly heard God say something to me or speak something to me. In my heart and in my mind, I heard God tell me, this is the Bible that will carry you through your breakup. And I was like, what? I'm like sitting there on the end of my bed. I'm already kind of in tears because I'm already emotional. Anytime that I enter in the hotel room, I'm literally crying because I'm reminded of what I have to go through. And I'm like, what? And so I like sit there, and I'm like, wait. So is that confirmation we're really meant to break up? So are we going to break up? And I sat there, I was like, no, like maybe I heard that wrong. Maybe that's my inner voice, like whatever. Like, that's just like whatever. And so I didn't think anything else of it. And prior to this trip, going on the trip on the airplane and then landing, and then while I was there and stuff, I was texting one of my really good friends, Sammy. Sammy, if you're watching this, you know what's about to happen. So I was texting Sammy, and I board the airplane, and I sit in my seat, and we're not texting like me and my ex are not texting each other. We're not calling or anything. And I text her, and I'm like, we need to talk about the possibility of me and my ex breaking up. Like, I think it's time. And she was like, really? Why? And I was like, because last week I got on the treadmill at 6 a.m. and I go on my phone, and the first thing that I Google when I wake up, the first thing is how to know it's time to break up with someone. And she was like, yep, that'll do it. And I was like, yep. And so we start talking and texting about it. And there were signs leading up to the breakup that I should have been more aware of, like my body, things that I was thinking, things that I was feeling, my heart posture on things. Like, there were a lot of things that I should have heeded and that people were kind of hinting at around me. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, I remember going to my sister's house, and I got there, and we were talking through it, and I was processing through it. I needed somebody to process through what I was going through and how I was feeling to like make me feel like I wasn't crazy. I sat down, and I was like, okay, I need to be told I'm not crazy, and like the world won't end if this happens. And she was like, okay, explain it to me. And so I laid it all out for her. And that was one of the first times I've ever been honest with someone about the status of our relationship and what I was feeling, because I had always put on this goody two-shoes front, right? Like, I had always been like, oh, well, it's fine, and he's perfect, and whatever. We both are imperfect. We both have our faults. Nobody is better than the other. No one person did one bad thing over the other. That's not what I'm saying here, but I was just honest about our relationship. It had not been working for a while, and we had just been faking it, honestly. And I had just been, self-justifying staying in it, and I was like, well, we're both Christian, we both love Jesus, so it's fine, like we're meant to be. And it's like, you are not meant to be with every other Christian that believes the same thing as you. Like that's just not right. Like you can break up with somebody, you can break up with another Christian. You aren't meant to date every single Christian out there. You know what I mean? Like God has somebody specific for you, and it's unfair for you to put yourself as a round peg in a square hole and make it fit just because you want a certain timeline, or just because you want to be married, or just because you want it to be that person. Do you know how many times I prayed to God for my heart to change? I prayed to God to allow, my heart to change about him and about the relationship and change a lot of things, and it just didn't, and that's okay. And I think just because it wasn't normalized and it wasn't talked about very often, that I got this like hesitancy about the breakup, and I just was like, no, like Christians don't break up and whatever. And it's like, Christians do break up, we just don't talk about it enough. Like, but also you don't have to spend forever with somebody that you've been in a long-term relationship with. Like if you are ready to end the relationship, if it is meant to be over, it will be over. It will come to an end naturally, and it's okay. Like it's okay to end a long-term relationship, and you will be okay after. Like literally what I clung to, which is so silly, but I clung to Taylor Swift and Joe whenever they broke up, and then she turned right around shortly after and found her Travis. So like that's what I was clinging to, of like, okay, they were together for 7.5 years, and she broke up with him, he broke up with her, whatever happened, and then she turned right around and met Travis. And so like I'm just waiting on my Travis, you know what I mean? Like if she can do it in 7.5 years, I can do it in 3.5, and I will be okay. And so I like low-key like clung to that. Really, I clung to God, but I also just clung to that. And anyways, so long story short, I get back from my Nashville trip, and we sit down, and I'm like, something has to change. We have to talk about it. And he was like, yeah, we agreed something wasn't working. And so we went to our counselor, which is actually my therapist, and we sat down with him, and we were like, something's not working here. I don't know what's not working. Let's talk about it with you, and you can help us kind of go through it. And so he talked with us through it. He was like, okay, like this is what I'm seeing. This is what I think you should do. And so we decided to take a true no contact 1 week break. And again, at this point, during the 1 week break that we took prior, and then now during this one, neither of us had told anybody. Like none of our friends knew, none of our family members knew, like literally only my parents knew, and that was it. Like that's the extent of who I told. Like I didn't want to tell somebody like, oh, we're going on a break, and then turn around and we end up back together, and then it's like, why were you on a break? So things were working, so you're not perfect. Like I didn't want people to know that, you know what I mean? So we go on the break, and at the therapy session, things had kind of unwound, if you will, and things were brought to light that we realized that we didn't really know that we were struggling with, and that we were both kind of keeping to ourselves because we didn't really want to air it out because we were afraid, right? We were both scared, right? Rightfully so. And so we take this break, and I remember it being literally the hardest week ever. And I remember like texting him on my notes and being like, hey, like I just woke up, like texting him how I normally would text him on a normal day. And all through that week, probably for like the first 2 or 3 days, I was sobbing, crying. I remember sitting in my closet crying. I remember driving home crying. It was so hard. It was literally one of the hardest things I've ever had to endure, because I have to unlearn how to like not have somebody as my best friend. And like, obviously you've done that with friendships, right? Where like all of a sudden somebody that was like your everything and you did everything with, all of a sudden like they're not your best friend anymore. So like there's that aspect of it, right? But like having somebody do life with you intentionally, like literally 24/7, best friend mode, like they're your person, all of a sudden being stripped away from you and like no contact, no nothing. It is like heart-wrenching. It is gut-wrenching. Like it's literally a gut punch. And so I went through a lot that week, and I ended up driving up to Tallahassee, talking with my family about it. Like I needed all of the familial advice that I could surround myself with, because I already knew what I felt and what I thought was true, but I needed my family around me. And like honestly, like obviously we didn't tell our friends, we didn't tell anybody like that, so I couldn't get advice from our friends, so like I had to go to my family. So I ended up going up to my aunt and uncle's house where my cousin lives. And Sadie is like this, you've met Sadie before, she's on a different podcast episode, but we are very, very close. And I just sat her down and I was like, I need to talk through this and I need to have your opinion. And so I told her everything. She told me everything that she felt. And I came home and I still didn't know what to do. I still didn't know. Y'all, we broke contact to meet up on, I believe it was a Sunday. I think Sunday or Monday. I forget which one it was. I think it was a Sunday. So we get to our meeting place where we met up, and I still have no idea what I'm going to do. I know in my heart of hearts that like if this is said, then I'll go through with it and I'll work on us. But if this isn't said, then I'm out too. So I knew that, but I knew I could go either way. Like I genuinely didn't know. Like my mom called and she was like on the way there. She's like, how do you feel? Like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. I have no idea. Like I genuinely don't know what I'm going to do. And so we got there, things unfolded, he shared, I shared, and basically the question was brought up, what do you want to do? And I remember looking off in the distance, and my heart and my like gut and my brain and my mind and everything was like, this is your moment to be honest. Be honest. Literally for so long. Like I cannot even tell you guys. Like I won't even get emotional about it, but I'm not going to. Maybe I will, I don't know. Yeah. For so long, I was lying to myself and the people around me about these like guilty feelings that I had about like feeling like doubts and insecurities about our relationship. And I was told that like it's from the enemy. It's okay. Like they're doubts. Like it's just, you just need to push them out. But I genuinely think that was my gut. I genuinely think that was the Lord. And there were so many times where I prayed about our relationship and I didn't receive clarity. And I took God's silence as a yes, continue. And I think God's silence was a you need to ask further, because there were a few times where I caught the vibe from God where God was like, I don't think this is right for you. And I was like, no, it's fine. I'm going to make it fit. I'm going to make it work. And all throughout like the past like year or two prior to us breaking up, I had been in a really, really bad spot with God. And after a lot of self-reflection and a lot of kind of coming back to my faith and realizing who I am in Jesus and like going back to church and stuff, I have come to realize that all of that distance between me and Jesus was there because I was disobeying him for so long. There were so many signs that God was like, you need to end things, like you do not need to be together with this person anymore, y'all aren't meant to be, like whatever. And I ignored it. I straight up ignored it. Why? Because I was comfortable. I was in my comfort zone. I didn't want to end things. I didn't want things to be over. I didn't want to, start over. Like, who wants to start over after a 3.5 year relationship with somebody brand new and you have to learn all new things about that person? You have to start from the ground up, and now you're like set back in your timeline that you had, right? The reality of it is it's our timeline. That's exactly that. It's not God's timeline that he has for your life. It's your timeline. So you're going off of your own disappointment, of your own expectations for your life, and it was never your life to begin with. It was never your expectations to begin with, and it was never your timeline. God's timeline trumps every single one of our timelines. God will always exceed your expectations. The truth of the matter is, it's just us pouting when it doesn't go our way, when God's like, you asked me for my will to be done, my will was done, and now you're mad at me. Like, what? Like, I literally felt like that the whole breakup. And so we decided to part ways, obviously, and we both leave that, meet up or whatever, and we haven't seen each other since. And I healed in my own way. I started getting involved in the gym, because if I sat at home and did nothing, if I sat at home on the couch, if I sat at home in bed and I just sat there with my mind running, with my anxious thoughts running, panicking, all that stuff, I would be in such a bad place mentally. Even to this day, there are things that have acquired, things that have, obviously with a breakup, you're going to learn new things, you're going to whatever, all these things that have kind of progressed. With all those things progressing, I am in the gym more than I ever have, and I'm so thankful that I started getting active and I changed my lifestyle and I changed what I eat and what I don't eat and everything. Like, I had to eat, I don't know if you guys know this, I haven't shared this on this platform before, and this will be a different episode, but I actually had an eating disorder, borderline eating disorder, back in like 2020-ish. I had really, really bad emetophobia and agoraphobia back then. I didn't leave the house for months. I didn't leave my mom's bed for like a month. And mentally, I was really, really out of it. I was down bad, and it was a really bad time in my life. And at the time, I stopped eating because I thought eating would make me be sick. And so I developed an eating disorder where I'd only eat pretzels. I wouldn't overeat. I wouldn't eat meals. Like, I'd skip meals. It was a really bad time. And so every so often, hints of that come up in my own life. When I'm really anxious, I'm going through something or whatever, I'll just skip meals. Like, I just won't eat. And it's not like I'm doing it on purpose. It's just because I kind of feel nauseous, and I'm like, oh, I feel nauseous, so I'm not going to eat. And it's like, no, you probably feel nauseous because you don't have anything on your stomach. But also, when you feel anxious, that should not make you not eat and starve yourself. It should make you take care of yourself more. And so that was the change in my mind. And so I started getting up 3 times a week at 5:30 in the morning and getting my butt down to the gym and working out all of my anger. Sometimes I take pre-workout and sometimes I don't. What I've learned and how I'm healing and where I am in my healing process. And it's been beautiful. To be completely honest with y'all, this is the closest I've been to God in forever. It has been so long since I've had an intimate walking relationship with him. Like, I remember in high school, we were so close and I loved God. I loved being around God. I loved intimacy with Jesus. And then I walked through a really bad mental health patch and it really pushed me away from him. And I walked through toxic relationships. I walked through breakups. I walked through a lot. And then my ex came into the picture and I was like, okay, God, like, wait a minute. And so then on social media and stuff, everything just started to shift. And so I started to get close to God. And then, you know, obviously last year and the year before last, things started to shift a little bit. And so I honestly think that the breakup pushed me to God. Obviously, when you hit rock bottom, the only way to go is up. And so that's what had happened. I hit rock bottom. I lost what I thought was everything. And then I realized that that was not my everything. And I want to encourage like other girls to know that and to rest in that of like, a boy does not define you. A boy does not make you whole. Like, just because you're not dating somebody, just because you're not married, just because you're not on the dating timeline or whatever it is, does not make you any less of a woman, does not make you any less of a daughter, does not make you any less worthy of love or of whatever, like of happiness or joy. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I've sat in this apartment by myself, whether it's listening to music, whether it's doing the dishes, whether it's sitting on the couch watching TV or whatever, with the fattest smile on my face, because I am so happy and so proud of myself of where I have come in this journey. And I just want to be an encouragement to you if you're like, oh, we've been dating for so long, like we can never break up, like I can never go through that. I sat crying my eyes out at my sister's house so many times. I remember staying at the doorway crying. I was like, I can never do this, I can never do this, I can never do this. And here I am. And I did it, and I'm fine. And it's okay to break up. It's okay to have a Christian breakup. It's okay to do it in a Christian appropriate manner. And the sad part about it is you can't stay friends. And that's something that I had to learn. And that was a really, really big gut punch, to be honest with you guys. That's something very sensitive I haven't really talked about much. But what I had to learn, and the biggest learning lesson, is that sometimes when you end a relationship and you're going through the breakup stage, you're like, okay, so we're gonna be friends forever, right? Like, we're still gonna talk on the phone, we're still gonna, you know, call and text, and we're still gonna be friends, we're still gonna be cordial, we'll check in with each other, like, oh yes, like absolutely, I'll be your biggest cheerleader, like all this stuff. We tell each other that, right? But I think that we tell each other that to soften the blow, when in reality it's never really like that. And I had to learn that the hard way, and I would expect he had to learn that the hard way too. I still have respect for him, and I love him as a brother in Christ, and I wish him nothing but the best. But I also know that this is an incredible part of my testimony. And a lot of people, which I didn't realize, but a lot of people actually truly struggled with this. And the beauty of it is that we can all come after our breakups and be like, okay, I learned so much during my relationship. And I can sit here today and tell you guys, I do not regret one thing. Every single thing that we did, every single thing that we, endured, every single trial, every single mountaintop, every single victory that we had over those 3.5 years were beautiful. And I'm so thankful for it, because it built me as a person. And there was a lot that we both had to go through that helped me and helped him, and it was beautiful. And I wouldn't change that for a minute. But also I knew that God closing that door meant there were incredible things ahead. And when God tells you to close something, when God tells you to walk away from something, be obedient. I know it's scary. I know that you're going to be like, oh my gosh, but I could never, like, we've been together forever. Okay, look at me. Look at Taylor Swift. Look at all the other people who have had to do it in their lifetimes. Like, I had a girl DM me yesterday and she was like, Cassidy, that video spoke volumes to me, because I just ended my 6-year relationship with my boyfriend. 6 years, y'all. 3.5, 6, 7.5. Like, there are people who do it way longer than that. What I'm telling you right now is that you will be okay. You will be okay. Do not listen to the enemy. When God's telling you to obey him, the enemy will say, but you're too scared, but you're too anxious. You're never going to make it out. You're always going to be stuck there. That's what the enemy wants you to believe. But the truth of it is that the enemy knows that if you do obey God, there are great mountaintops looking for it. Like, literally, if you could just see what was ahead of you. God's like, if you leave this behind, trust me, look at what's coming. But we can't see that, obviously, right? It's like that picture sometimes that comes around on Pinterest every once in a while. And it's a little girl, and she's like holding on to the little stuffed animal. And God's like has his hand out, and behind his back is like the other huge stuffed animal. And it's like, if you only gave up what I'm telling you to give up, I have something even better for you. And so at the end of the day, I can know and rest assured that I learned how to better myself. I've learned things about myself that I wish that I would have known in the relationship, but I didn't. I learned how to love better for a future relationship, and I'm healing and I'm working on myself now, and I'm processing a lot, right? Like, there are a lot of things that I can look at now where I'm like, okay, I need to work on this. I need to target this. Here's the thing about discipline. And here's the thing about looking for a man who, oh my gosh, he checks all my boxes and he's athletic and he's disciplined and he does all this stuff and he wakes up early, he does early morning devotionals. Okay, let me be real with you guys before you get angry at me. What are you doing? What are you doing? Are you wanting a man? Are you desiring a man of God that has all of these things figured out, that he is devoted, that he's disciplined, all these things, and you're sitting on your couch every morning till 10 a.m. and you're not putting in the same devotion? It is unfair of us to chase somebody that has all of these traits that we're not currently working on either, because a man of God will want a woman of God too. He won't want somebody that's lazy in their faith, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Oh yeah, I'll get to it one day. He wants somebody that's determined. He wants somebody that is disciplined also. And what I've always said is discipline comes before devotion. So if you are struggling with getting in the Word, if you're like, oh God, I'm just not as close to you, I can't feel you right now, whatever it is, just know that sometimes you have to set up yourself every morning and be like, okay, here I am at 6:30 in the morning until 7, and I'm going to read my Bible, I'm going to do my devotional, I'm going to get in the Word, I'm going to pray, I'm going to spend time with Jesus. Boom, every single morning. For me, that was with me in the gym. So every morning at 5:30, I had to wake up, I had to go down to the gym, and lo and behold, probably about 5 or 6 times in, I think I'm starting to actually like the gym. I think I'm actually starting to like the fact that my legs hurt after the gym. I think I'm starting to like the way that I look in the mirror. All these things just go to prove that the more that you obey God, the more that you spend time with Him, intimate time with Him, the more that you become like Him, the more that you act like Him, the more that you sound like Him, but also the more that you get to walk hand in hand with Him. And I think that was the piece that I was missing out on forever, is when I was being disobedient, when I wasn't leaving what Jesus was telling me to leave, I wasn't getting that intimate relationship with Him because I was literally keeping Him at arm's length because I was so afraid of what He was going to say. That's what it was. I was literally walking around like this because I was like, I don't want anything that you're going to offer. I don't want you to tell me that I should break up with him. I don't want you to tell me that I should leave him because I don't want to hear it. I cannot process that. Absolutely not. No. And then slowly but surely, I started to learn that the more that I let my arm down and hear God, the more that He was actually making good points. It's not God doesn't want the worst for us. God doesn't want, nope, give it up. It's a good thing. Give it up. Give it up. I just want you to be unhappy for the rest of your life. I want you to be single forever. God knows that we probably in some cases deserve more. God knows that there's somebody else out there for us that maybe fits more of who we are and who we're meant to be. God knows that He has a man of God out there for us. And if we settle for the wrong one, we'll never see what God's best is. And another thing that I had to learn throughout all of this. So with every guest that I've had on Not For Nothing, I've always asked the question, what could you tell yourself? What could you tell others? What is one thing in your life that you're like, oh my gosh, that was not for nothing? And this is the thing that was not for nothing for me throughout the breakup process and throughout making that hard call, was that I heard a phrase somewhere after the breakup, and it said, I'd rather be single than to settle. And I was like, dang. I'll say it again for you guys because it was just that good. I'd rather be single than settle. And I think that speaks volumes because now, reflecting back on that, I can see there are things that I have a personal checklist for that I'm like, okay, I want this in a partner. I want this in a man of God. I want this in a future relationship. And there are things that are non-negotiables for me that I have now. And I don't want to settle for something when I know that God's best is just around the corner. But also, if you're just I'd rather just be content in dating somebody, but I know that I could find better out there, or I know that God might have better for me out there, but I'm scared to wonder what if I don't find that, so I'm just going to stay here because I don't want to, and I'm scared, and I don't know what the unknown's going to bring me. It doesn't matter if God doesn't bring you anybody. If you're settling, it's not worth it. It is not worth it. And settling doesn't mean that they're a bad person too. So let me just put that out there. If you're using the term of I would have been settling or whatever, that does not make them a bad person. It just makes them not your person. My ex was a great guy. I have nothing but respect for him. But at the end of the day, we weren't each other's person. And that's really sad, and it's a sobering thought, and it's really gut-wrenching, like I said, to admit and to, speak out into existence. But at the end of the day, if they're not your person, move on. Move on. Because you are wasting their time for them not to find their person, but you're also wasting your time to not find your person. And so take that with what you may, but I would rather be single and be living on my own and be living, an intimate life with Jesus, walking hand in hand and knowing that I was obedient, rather than being disobedient and disobeying God and settling and always wondering if there is more out there. So trust me on this. You will be okay. To the girl that's crying to her friends, crying to her parents, and she's like, I'm never going to be okay. I'm never going to get through this. You are. I'm living proof that you are. But I'm also living proof that if you don't settle and you decide to walk away, you will see your life change for the better. You will find yourself again. You will find your purpose. You will find an intimate relationship with Jesus. And let me tell you something. Obeying Jesus is right where you want to be. Walking hand in hand in an intimate relationship with Jesus is right where you want to be. And I don't want to be anywhere else but with him. Tandem, walking hand in hand. And that is something I will never give up. And so let that be an encouragement to you guys. I love y'all so much. And I just thought I'd share my side of the story, a little bit of the breakup with you guys, because again, I respect him. I respect our relationship and what it was. But I also have a testimony to share. I have what I went through that I want to share with you guys because it means so much to y'all. And I hope that this encourages the one girl who's like, I'm too afraid to walk away. You can walk away and you'll be okay. I promise. And I hope that y'all can just see Jesus through this and that you maybe take something away like encouragement to leave if you want to leave. I hope that you guys can see Jesus through this story, and I hope that if you needed encouragement from this, that you found it somewhere. And I love you guys so much, and I will see y'all in episode 8. Bye.